In the previous episode, we saw Purple Sword and Orange Sword remark that they don't care about Lei Ping and were not taking his words seriously. Elif overheard their conversation, became furious, and attacked them with her card slash. However, Blue Sword intervened and stopped her attack, calming the situation down. Up next, a furious Purple Sword asks Blue Sword to get out of her way. She wants to see what the elf can do. However, Blue Sword refuses, saying that he promised Master Chi-Chi he would protect them. If anything happens to them, it will be his fault. He looks at Elif, the new leader of the elf tribe, and tells her that if she wants to vent her anger, she should direct it at him. Unfazed, Elif summons her cards and tells Blue Sword that if she beats him, he must apologize for his words and actions. Otherwise, by the time they realize what kind of existence they have offended, it will be too late. Blue Sword smiles, saying that ever since he was invaded by the apostles and lost to her in the last guild competition, he has always wanted to compete with her again. So he will do his best and asks her not to show mercy. Meanwhile, the octopus monster, furious that they are not taking him seriously, can no longer tolerate them and attacks both of them. However, Blue Sword and Elif transform into Flying Dragon and Bluebird and instantly kill the monster. After that, they start clashing with each other. Both are very powerful and are giving each other a tough competition. Seeing them fight, Purple Sword cannot believe it. Elif has indeed improved a lot in strength. She can actually fight back and forth with Blue Sword, who has reached the 5th level of enlightenment. However, Orange Sword tells her that Blue Sword hasn't used the real Tai Chi sword yet. It seems that the elf tribe will be unable to match the Sword Saint Guild in the future. Elif uses Flying Dragon, the most advanced summon she has. She is impressed to see Blue Sword counterattacking her moves and thinks that he is indeed worthy of being Master Chi-Chi's direct disciple. Meanwhile, Blue Sword knows she still has many cards to play, so he can't be careless. Elif looks at Blue Sword and tells him to stop testing her and fight for real. Blue Sword smiles and nods. Then, Elif prepares her powerful attack, Fiery Death's Scythe, and Blue Sword uses his most powerful attack, the 5th form, Dusting in the Wind. However, before their attacks can collide, a massive force passes by them and splits the mountain in two. Both are shocked, wondering what just happened. They look in the direction the powerful attack came from and are surprised to see it was Mr. Boores. He used that attack to stop them and told them to end their child's play, explaining they are not there to cause trouble. Then Mr. Boores turns to Elif and explains that she is too impulsive. As the leader of the elf tribe, she must consider the overall situation when she acts. Blue Sword nods. However, he is nervous, unable to believe a common flying card can produce such power. He thinks, no wonder he is recognized as the second strongest person after Lord Chi-Chi. Elif also nods. However, she tells Mr. Boores that they were talking nonsense about Lord Leping. She knows her father taught her that if she lost, the reputation of the elf tribe would be severely damaged, but if she won, the Sword Saint Guild would also lose face. Meanwhile, Annie uses her power to heal Elif's injuries, and tells her that Brother Leping didn't mind being offended in public just to help them. As the saying goes, ignorance is no crime, and she thinks Brother Leping will not bother with them. Elif notices Sister Annie, who is now called the Witch of Heaven. Annie uses Raphael's magic and helps everyone to calm down. She looks at everyone and tells them to unite and solve the current problems first. Everyone nods. Then, Orange Sword approaches them and asks them to explain clearly what finding a hot spring to welcome the arrival of the unknown means. Mr. Boores tells her that, to be honest, not even Lady Chi-Chi knows the true relationship between these things. They were simply following that person's instructions. A worried Purple Sword asks Mr. Boores if he really can't tell them. They hate this feeling the most. Everyone else knows the truth, but they are the only ones kept in the dark. However, Blue Sword tells them there is no need to worry. As long as it is Master Chi-Chi's order, they just need to execute it. They still have 10 days. The problem is that they have searched almost the entire volcanic area and can't find even a drop of water, let alone hot springs. Mr. Boores tells Blue Sword that the so-called search for hot springs is more of a test from that person, so it is certainly not that simple. As long as they pass the test, they will receive that person's favor. This must be the reason why Master Chi-Chi sent them here. As for the person, they have actually already seen him, but he cannot say more and will stop there. On the other hand, Annie is a little nervous. It's strange. According to the literature, there should be a lot of hot springs gushing out from the ground in the volcanic area of the demon realm. How could they all have disappeared? Elif knows the test is never as simple as it sounds. Perhaps the great significance contained in it is beyond their comprehension at this moment. Suddenly, Annie warns everyone to be careful. She notices a huge and complex magical power falling from the sky. Mr. Boores worries, wondering if the evil has arrived early. The pressure is so intense that Orange Sword and Purple Sword fall to the ground. It's so heavy that they can't even breathe. Mr. Boores quickly tells Elif to prepare to attack. Annie looks at the sky and tells everyone to prepare because they are coming. The sky turns red, and the clouds start gathering in one place. The next moment, a massive robotic head emerges from the clouds and quickly lands on the ground in front of them. Mr. Boores looks nervously at the thing. A shocked Purple Sword wonders, does this kind of thing really exist in the world? It is a massive robot. The robot's gaze shifts to them, and Annie warns everyone that it is looking at them. Without wasting any time, Blue Sword runs at it to launch an attack, thinking it is better to strike first. However, Mr. Boores tells him to stop yelling, "Don't be impulsive." Blue Sword doesn't listen. He uses Bluebird Crosscut on the massive robot. However, to his surprise, his attack is easily countered. Blue Sword is shocked to see the slash that came from the robot. He realizes it's the Dragon Slash, which can only be used by a legendary dragon-slaying swordsman. Suddenly, a gate on the massive robot opens, and 3 individuals step out: the Dwarf King, Miss Chi-Chi, and Miss Pythias. The Dwarf King turns to Miss Chi-Chi and tells her that he hasn't left the Dwarf Kingdom for a long time, and didn't expect to be greeted by an attack from her apprentice as soon as he set foot on the outside land. Miss Chi-Chi apologizes for not teaching her disciple properly. Seeing Blue Sword tumbling in fear, Purple Sword quickly approached him and asked if he was okay. Blue Sword nodded and told her that he was fine, stammering, "It actually is. It turns out to be Lord Chi-Chi." The one who had stopped Blue Sword's attack was the Dwarf King. He used the knife Leping gave him to block the attack. Then, he turned to Miss Chi-Chi and asked her, "Is this the location of the mission left by the brave man?" Miss Chi-Chi nodded, telling him that, besides her apprentice, the others were also chosen by the brave one. On the other hand, Miss Pythias was excited to see so many people who could use magic. She introduced herself and asked them to teach her. Miss Chi-Chi apologized to Mr. Boores for making him wait so long. Mr. Boores smiled, excited to see that Master Chi-Chi and the Dwarf King were finally here. Then Pythias told them everything that had happened in her kingdom, and how, with the help of Mr. Brave and the Sister Demon King, she became the new king of the Kingdom of Aristotle. The same thing happened with the Dwarf King. The brave man helped him solve the S-level weapon forging crisis in the Dwarf Kingdom. S-class weapons were now available for mass production, ready to be supplied. Upon hearing their words, both Orange Sword and Purple Sword were nervous and couldn't believe it. They are really the legendary hero and the devil, they thought. The so-called "that person" actually refers to 2 people. However, Orange Sword still couldn't believe it because, from what she knew, they had died a long time ago. Miss Pythias told them that her new machine was also inspired by Brother Leping's mechanical dog. This was her first time in the outside world, and she hoped to have pleasant cooperation with them all. Worried, Elif quickly addressed her as Majesty Pythias, noting that she had directly exposed the true identity of that person. Hearing the name Leping, it sounded familiar to Orange Sword. She had heard this name somewhere before. Mr. Boores told Elif that the Dwarf King used to be a subordinate of the Demon King. Perhaps because they have now recognized each other, there is no need to hide the Demon King's identity anymore. After that, the Dwarf King dismissed the conversation and asked them, "Haven't you found the hot spring that the hero mentioned yet? As far as I remember, 500 years ago, there should have been many magical underground hot springs in this volcanic area." Mr. Boores nodded, telling him that they had searched the entire volcanic area in the past 10 days, but hadn't found even a drop of water. Even the special seeds of the elf tribe, which can find water sources 100 meters underground, had no effect here. Miss Pythias smiled and told them, "It's just water. Is it that difficult?" Surprised, Mr. Boores asked Miss Pythias if she had a solution. Miss Pythias told them that since they know magic, they can use elemental magic to summon water. Hearing Miss Pythias's explanation, Purple Sword and Orange Sword laughed at her, remarking that Aristotle's new king was really humorous. A nervous Miss Pythias apologized to them and asked if she had said something wrong. Annie told her, "If elemental magic had not withered, we could indeed use magic to solve the water problem." Confused, Miss Pythias asked Annie, "What do you mean? Elemental magic withering?" Annie told Miss Pythias that, according to historical records, the elemental fairies on the Brave continent suddenly disappeared about 400 years ago, and no one knew why. Miss Pythias was still confused. She didn't know what they were talking about. Elemental magic, elemental fairies, and she still couldn't quite understand it. But one thing she did realize was that the books on magic in her kingdom's library were too outdated, and there was still too much magical knowledge waiting for her to learn. Annie explained that without the blessing of the fairies, elemental magic was locked at the intermediate level and could not even reach the advanced level. Therefore, the disappearance of fairies 400 years ago led to the magic revolution, which in turn led to the development of various other kinds of magic. The strongest intermediate water magic is the water ball spell, but this move requires moisture from the environment, so it is completely useless in the dry volcanic area. Upon hearing this explanation, Miss Pythias apologized and thanked Annie for telling her everything. She was ashamed that she didn't even know such basic magic knowledge, but was determined not to give up. She would study harder and catch up with her Demon King's sister. Then, the Dwarf King suggested, "How about diverting water directly? With Miss Chi-Chi's swordsmanship skills, she should be able to easily create a canal to transport water from the distant lake here." Miss Chi-Chi nodded but said she couldn't do that. Hearing this, Purple Sword wondered if Miss Chi-Chi was deliberately leaving the task for the three of them to do. The problem was that the nearest lake was thousands of miles away. How could they do it? Blue Sword, however, agreed with the idea and wanted to give it a try. However, Miss Chi-Chi told them to think about it again. Such a huge change to the environment would inevitably lead to the destruction of all living things. But the ultimate goal is just to bring water here to make hot springs. "Is this really what the hero wanted to see?" she asked. Hearing Miss Chi-Chi's words, everyone fell silent. They realized that if they only pursued completing the hero's tasks to obtain gifts, they would soon forget the hero's original intention and fall into the abyss of greed, reaping the consequences. On the scales of the brave man, they were just weights to be weighed, and the final decision, whether it was blessing or destruction, depended entirely on their choices. Annie agreed with Miss Chi-Chi. "What you said makes a lot of sense. Brother Leping and Sister Elizabeth were willing to help me because of my pure heart, not because of flattery. But later on, in order to compete with Master Chi-Chi and Senior Boores, my heart gradually began to change. Fortunately, Master Chi-Chi woke me up this time." The Dwarf King also agreed, saying, "If we sacrifice other lives in pursuit of strength, we will just become the second Dark Guild." Miss Pythias came forward and told everyone she had another suggestion. "If it is not possible above ground, then could it be possible underground?" She told everyone her plan. They could dig a channel to the sea 100 meters underground, which would not only solve the water problem, but also would not affect the environment on land. The Purple Sword and Orange Sword laughed at her again, saying, "That's easier said than done. Why don't you do it?" Miss Pythias nodded and told them, "Leave it to me." With the help of her new Royal City Giant soldier to dig, she estimated it would take 7 days to dig through to the sea. Everyone nodded and agreed with her plan. Mr. Boores approached and said, "It's true that many hands make light work. Now that we have a water source, Elif and I will go back to the elf tribe and bring some more plant seeds for greening." The Dwarf King told everyone, "Leave the furniture forging for the Hot Spring Hotel to me. I guarantee that even the chairs will be S-grade." Miss Pythias was excited. She told them that she had some new ideas for the design of the hotel and hot spring area and asked Annie if she could help her collect some volcanic rocks. Annie nodded and told her to leave the transportation of materials to her puppets. Miss Chi-Chi also agreed, adding that the cutting of the materials and the security of the surrounding area would be handled by the Sword Saint Guild. Mr. Boores and Elif were amazed to see everyone, regardless of class or race, contributing their strength to the common goal. "This atmosphere is really energizing," Mr. Boores commented. The Dwarf King agreed with him. "The last time I saw such a united scene was 500 years ago. For the vision that the brave man and the Demon King hoped for, let us—" Everyone shouted in unity, ready to complete the task given to them by the brave hero and the Demon Queen. But unbeknownst to them, 1,000 meters underground, a figure named Wish Malfoy was hiding. He was furious, wondering, Dwarf King Heimerdinger, Chi-Chi Thogs, and the bloodline of Gimji? Why are all these people gathered here? Has my position been exposed? But that's impossible, he thought. The isolation barrier created by the Master's magic power cannot be discovered, and that guy, number 24, has disappeared again. Could it be that he has betrayed me too? This is absurd. I can't leave for the time being while I am absorbing my Master's magic power, but it doesn't matter. Once I finish absorbing it, I will gift these guys to my master. Meanwhile, on the brave continent outside Leping's house, monsters were rampaging, An ice goat prepared its powerful freeze beam attack and launched it towards a sky dragon eel. However, the sky dragon eel dodged it easily and counterattacked with its death coil, wrapping its body around the ice goat and restricting its movements. Just when the eel thought it had won, a powerful fireball landed on both of them from the sky. It was an immortal firebird, who had attacked after seeing them let their guard down, but to its surprise, a lord of mammoths attacked it from behind, sending it flying into the ground. Suddenly, a ninja frog used a technique to grab the lord of mammoths and smash him into the ground. Then, it told the lord of mammoths to get up and continue fighting. Suddenly, the sound of clapping came from the smoke. As the smoke cleared, a figure emerged. It was Wang Chai. He praised the frog, Xiaogua, telling him, "You have implemented the master's free-range chicken concept very well." Xiaogua told Wang Chai, "Without the pressure of survival, the monsters became lazy. They got fatter, and their meat wasn't firm enough. But since I received your feedback last time, I immediately arranged for them to intensify their training to always keep them in the best condition." Wang Chai had come to collect protection money again. Xiaogua laughed, saying, "Boss Wang Chai, you are too serious. Rather than calling it protection money, it is more like a tribute we sincerely present to the Creator. In the vast grasslands of Warcraft, those who are lucky enough to be favored by the Creator are called chosen children, to incarnate into flesh and blood and become the food of the Creator. Death is not the end. It is to decompose and reassemble, to explore the sequence between heaven and earth. Evolution is eternal." He explained that this is how their evolution works. A normal fish, after being eaten by Leping, went through that process and evolved into the sky dragon eel.